So are we supposed to start the podcast?
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That was like
That was a bad 2023 clap.
but it's 2024.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
I need to do better in
All
2024.
right. Listen up, YouTube. Subscribe to us. I know we're supposed to say that at the end, but I always forget. So we say it at the beginning. Welcome to IHIP News, where we talk about things that are important to us.
Yes.
What's important to me right now, Pumps, you and I discussed this briefly yesterday, is all this hubbub about Nikki Haley and her candidacy.
The worst. Not the worst, but bad.
It is bad because they're trying to, she's shown us in the past exactly who she is on issues.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're trying to rebrand her and trot her out as this moderate for the Republican Party. And she is not.
Nothing moderate about her.
So recently she's found herself in some trouble, and she was at a town hall. And I want to read to you and our viewer what was said. So the town hall participant asks Nikki Haley, what was the cause of the United States Civil War? Miss Haley responds, well, don't come with an easy question, right? I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run the freedoms and what people could do and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? The participant says something inaudible. And Nikki Haley responds, I'm sorry? And the participant says, I'm not running for president. I wanted to see your viewpoint on the cause of the Civil War. Haley responds, I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I have always stood by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. That's an interesting point that she makes.
A real interesting point.
She goes on, they don't need to tell you what you can and can't do. Another interesting point. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way. The participant says, thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answered that question without mentioning the word slavery.
Good for the questioner.
Nikki Haley responds, what do you want me to say about slavery? And the participant says, no, you answered my question. Thank you. And then Nikki Haley stomps away and says, next question. Here's something that I'm starting to see a pattern of. We're starting to see Republicans openly not talking about slavery. This was a very direct question.
Right.
You and I are of average intelligence and average competence. If somebody asked either one of us, what is the Civil War about? I immediately would have said slavery.
I immediately would have said slavery. And I think anyone that's recently been in U.S. history would have said slavery, unless you're in Florida. It's just astonishing to me. And what I can't figure out, was that an intentional gaffe?
That's right.
Or did she do it on purpose because she doesn't want to anger the MAGA base that's trying to whitewash history?
I think it's intentional. I think that we're starting to see a pattern. And if we think about Florida, which you mentioned, and we have Governor Kittenheels there, Florida enacted African-American history standards that state that Black people benefited from slavery. So you're starting to see this pattern in the Republican Party. We could call it whitewashing.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that she gives that word salad response and she starts talking about limited government made me want to look at her past a little bit.
I just want to note one thing. She was the governor for 2 terms of the great state of South Carolina.
That's
so
correct.
She's intimately familiar with slavery and the causes and the repercussions that are still happening today.
Well, as you know, the abortion issue, the pro-life stance, is not doing very well on the ballot. It's getting annihilated and obliterated. Women do not like having their rights taken away from them, and they don't like government involved in their pelvic exams or their doctor's appointments. The Republican Party shows you who they are. All of these Supreme Court justices that voted to overturn Roe at some point in their past had written very pro-life stances. And then they get in front of the Senate committee and they say, oh, no, it's precedent. And then when they get a case to overturn it, they overturn it. They showed us who they were. Well, Nikki Haley has shown people who she is on this issue. She voted very pro-life. She voted for life at conception bills, right to life bills. And now these issues are having such difficulty at the ballot box that she's trying to shift a little bit.
Right.
She's trying to seem moderate on the issue. But here's the problem with the Republican Party and abortion. Nikki Haley's stance on abortion, her moderate stance, is saying things like women shouldn't be jailed.
It's unbelievable that that would even come out of a candidate for president's mouth.
Yep.
It's unbelievable that she tries to come off moderate, particularly after the referendum in Ohio. She really backslid when everything she did as governor was banning, no exceptions. Then she backtracked and said, well, you could use the morning after pill if you were raped. That's not moderation. And for her to sit there and act like she is a moderate when she does and says the kind of things she says about abortion make me embarrassed that she is a woman, that she's gaining traction as a woman in the presidential race. Because as a woman, she has a duty to other women that she has completely left behind.
This type of flip-flopping that she's engaged in and that many on the Supreme Court have engaged in is far more insidious to me.
Agree.
Than these just overt people that say, absolutely, I want an abortion ban, no exceptions, because at least you know where they stand.
Right.
They stand way over in the crazy, I want to control women, I want to shame sex, dogmatic world. The Supreme Court justices like the handmaid. And like, or, you know, I guess she's more like Mrs. Waterford. And the beer drinker, what was his name?
Kavanaugh.
That's more insidious because their crazy is not as overt. It's more covert. And this is what's so dangerous about having a candidate like Nikki Haley. When you see them all up on the stage, you've got Kitten Hills, you've got, Trump, and you've got her, and she seems more reasonable. And she's trying to do this, double speak where she can kind of send messages to the base,
right,
but also appeal to maybe low information voters or fence riders. And to me, it's very insidious and very dangerous. But most importantly, Nikki Haley has a history of flip-flopping, not only on abortion, which she's trying to do right now, which we here at IHIP News are calling her out on. So handled that.
Check.
But she flip-flops constantly on Donald Trump. This man has proven to be so dangerous and so antithetical to democratic principles that you have to stand firmly against him. Nikki Haley is incapable of doing this. Therefore, I believe her behavior is very disqualifying to be commander-in-chief. However, let me tell you what she flip-flops on. So in 2015 with Trump, she says, every time someone criticizes him, he goes and makes a political attack back. That's not who we are as Republicans. That's not what we do. She ends up voting for him and says, yeah, I'm voting for him, but I'm not a big fan. Well, then Trump appoints her to be UN ambassador. She leaves, she does that role, and then she leaves in 2018. And then she publishes a book. And this is just so typical of a conservative book name. It's called With All Due Respect, Defending America with Grit and Grace. In the book, she's all in on the Trump presidency. She lavishes him with praise, explaining that his strategy in complimenting Russian President Vladimir Putin is a maneuver intended to keep communications open.
Which we know, just based on his behavior and his past behavior, is bullshit.
It's a jet stream of bullshit. Yes. And so, now she's putting all this praise. And then she even goes as far in her book to say, in every instance I dealt with him, he was truthful. He listened, and he was great to work with.
See, that's antithetical to his obvious personality disorder. None of that can be true. So why does she cover his ass? Why isn't she attacking him on his 91 felony counts? Because she's scared of the MAGA base.
That's exactly right.
And I'll tell you one other thing. It just goes all through me that she rants and raves about freedom and small government when she wants to be in everybody's wedding reception, in everybody's uterus, but yet she wants to sit. I'm sure she's homophobic. She clearly has no respect for history. And then to praise Donald Trump, I mean, it's just a trifecta of me hating her.
So that was 2018 that she is praising him. Then January 6th rolls around, and Nikki says, I think he's going to find himself further and further isolated. I think he's lost any sort of political viability he was going to have. He's not going to run for federal office again. I don't think he's going to be in the picture. I don't think he can. He's fallen so far. But then by October 2021, when everybody kind of whitewashed,
right,
as a dust up, January 6th was just a little misunderstanding, she changes her mind yet again. And she says, he has the ability to get strong people elected, and he has the ability to move the ball. And I hope that he continues to do that. We need him in the Republican Party. I don't want us to go back to the days before Trump. And now Nikki Haley and Governor Kittenheels, they have both pledged to pardon Trump if they are elected. And so here's the narrative that needs to be pushed. The Republican Party is a big government party.
Absolutely.
Today, they are a big government party who is weak on crime, full stop. Kittenheels, big government, weak on the economy with all of his anti-Disney stuff.
Right.
And he's weak on crime with wanting to pardon a man who attempted a coup d'etat. Are you kidding me?
91 felony counts.
And then their most moderate candidate, look at this, all this flip-flopping, and you can, go into the bowels of Google, and it's just, there's year after year after year of Nikki Haley flip-flopping on stuff. But she is a performative candidate.
Absolutely.
And she has shown us in her past exactly who she is. She wants to whitewash history. She cannot answer a very direct question for her constituents of color. And just for the sake of history and accuracy, in saying that the Civil War was about slavery.
That was such an alarm bell for me. It was such an alarm bell because she is from South Carolina and she knows better. So she's choosing not to. That's a problem.
I want to see these moderators at these Republican debates get aggressive.
I do too.
With these candidates about this pardoning Trump. 91 felonies. A total criminal in the White House. And all of these white people just want to dance around it. And it's ridiculous that they are saying that they would pardon him. They're weak on crime and they're big government. The modern day Republican Party is total garbage.
Right. It's gone. It's now turned into a right-wing cult, for lack of a better term.
Yes, it absolutely has. And Nikki Haley is gaining steam and momentum. She was backed by the Koch brothers, and that in and of itself should be a red flag. But she seems less crazy.
She does. She comes off less crazy. But Mike Johnson comes off less crazy than Jim Jordan.
Right. But that's more insidious to me.
Right. Her hypocrisy and her flip-flopping tells me she's not a strong
That's
leader.
how Roe got overturned.
That's exactly right.
Is this flip-flopping. They show you in their past, in their writings, and in their voting records exactly who they are. And then they want to get the big, they want to get on the Supreme Court, or she wants to be president. So then they moderate their stance,
right,
which is total BS. And then they go back to who they are. And Nikki Haley has shown people exactly who she is. And she's weak on crime. Anybody who would want to pardon Trump absolutely hates America. Full stop. All of this Republican Party, I love America. I'm a patriot. Then let's put the guy who tried to attempt a coup d'etat. Let's put him in
jail.
prison.
Right. That's exactly where he belongs. I couldn't agree more. No, I think Nikki Haley is, just because she's better than Trump and DeSantis does not make her good. That is a low, low bar.
That's exactly right. Well, this has been our brief episode of IHIP News. We'll be back whenever we feel like it. Please subscribe, join us on Patreon, and listen to our podcast. I've had it on all platforms.